Hi, ocean lovers. Welcome to episode number 4 of Dive Stories, brought to you by PADI, helping millions around the world to seek adventure and save the ocean. I'm your host, Ocean Allison, and on today's episode, I'm chatting with Danni Washington. Danni is an ocean science and conservation TV personality and co-founder of The Big Blue and You. During this episode, Danni shares all about her foundation in marine biology, some seriously incredible diving adventures, and about her passion for increasing diversity in science and conservation. All that and more coming right up. Thanks for being here. You're listening to Dive Stories. We bring the underwater world to you through in-depth conversations with inspiring divers from around the globe. Thanks for diving in with us as we seek adventure and save the ocean. Happy listening and happy diving. Today's Dive Stories guest is ocean science and conservation TV personality, Danni Washington. Danni, welcome to Dive Stories, and thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today.
Thanks, Allison. I'm really grateful to be here.
Yeah, great. Well, on behalf of PADI, we're obviously excited to have you on Dive Stories, but I do just want to add on a personal note that I'm super happy you're joining me on the show since, you know, we've been friends for years, working in the same field and focusing on the ocean always. And I just love any opportunity to chat with you, of course, and also highlight the amazing work you do. So yeah, I'm super excited.
I'm excited as well. It's always good to connect and just bring a little bit more light into each other's lives. I think we do that every time we get together.
Yeah, very well said. I love that. Okay, so we're going to get right into it. We're actually going to start out by diving right into what we call the Dive 5. And how the Dive 5 works is at the start of each episode, I ask our guest 5 rapid fire questions about their experience as a diver and an ocean lover. So, Danni, are you ready to answer the Dive 5?
Let's do it.
Okay, number 1, where is the first place you ever took a breath underwater?
Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Okay, number 2, in one word, how does diving make you feel?
Free.
Number 3, what is your favorite ocean animal?
Orca.
Okay, number 4, where is your dream dive location that you haven't gotten to dive yet?
The Great Barrier Reef.
Same. Maybe we should go there together.
Yes, I'm down.
Someday. Okay, and number 5, this is a big one. In one word, what does the ocean mean to you?
Life.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for answering the Dive 5. We're going to get a little more in depth by jumping into the core of this interview. And I want to start out by talking about your background in marine biology because it's such an important foundation to just all of the communications work that you do. So I know that you earned your degree in marine biology from the University of Miami in 2008. But I want to ask you, where did your inspiration come from to study marine biology in the first place?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, and I get that question a lot because it's very rare that you see women of color in this field, although it is changing these days because, like you said, I graduated in 2008 and that was over 12 years ago. And so things are moving rapidly. And as we gain collective consciousness or more collective consciousness about the ocean and ocean health, I think there is a bit of galvanizing that's been happening amongst people of all backgrounds to look at the ocean in a different way and to seek, answers about how we can protect and maintain what we have left. And so for me, as a kid growing up in Miami, it's really hard not to be attracted to the ocean in Florida. It's gorgeous, warm water, tropical beaches. And that was something that my family and I really cherished as I was growing up. That was our happy place. We would go on the weekends. My mom and I remember as a toddler, I would go with both of my parents. And so the beach has always held a special place in my heart. And from there, it was really that spark of curiosity that blossomed from those experiences where I wanted to know more. I just wanted to know what was under the waves, what life was happening, and what animals were, busy and doing their thing. Like I wanted to see it all. And so the thought of becoming a scuba diver was number one for me, even before I went to college. I was certified at 17 years old after begging my mom for, I don't know, years. I finally did it with one of my best friends, and it opened the world for me. The first time I got to take my first few breaths underwater in the open ocean, it was the most liberating moment of my life. And it also just reminded me that there's so much more that we need to learn. As human beings, we've only explored under the waves about maybe 5 to 7% of our entire planet, which we live on an ocean planet. There's, I think we need to really shift our the way we reference our home. It's really planet ocean, not planet Earth.
Definitely. Well, yeah, that's amazing to hear. I actually didn't realize that you became a certified diver before you started studying marine biology. So I imagine that was part of that path of inspiration.
Absolutely. Yes. Because again, I was feeding that curiosity. And I think that is truly the core of the scientist's mind. Like it has to be the center of your wheel has to be about curiosity if you want to be a scientist, because otherwise you'll probably lose interest very quickly because it's all about asking questions. And so after going to undergrad, I had the opportunity to work with several brilliant people in the field. I helped with shark research. I participated in NOAA dolphin studies, worked with a marine mammal veterinarian, also, volunteered with different ocean conservation nonprofits, and really had a great breadth of experience in all of these different realms, trying to figure out for myself, what area of marine science or ocean conservation did I want to take part in after graduating. At first, when I began college, I thought I was going to take the traditional route of being in academia, probably going for my PhD at some point. And then I quickly realized toward the end of undergrad that wasn't quite my path yet. Who knows? It could be in my future. But at that juncture, I was very clear in the idea that I needed to be a face and a voice for the ocean, so that I could represent, the fact that the ocean belongs to all of us, or we have stewardship over the ocean. I don't necessarily say that we own it, because the ocean is its own thing, but we've been tapped with the responsibility of looking at our own behavior and how it impacts all of our natural systems. So we have to feel like we belong to it and it belongs to us.
Yeah, very well said. So from your perspective, in combination with your experiences as a diver, before you went and studied marine biology as well as after, what sort of role does that science-based framework that you have from earning your degree, what kind of role does that play in the way that you think about and see the ocean?
That framework is absolutely essential for my understanding and my interaction with the ocean. I've always appreciated the methodology behind, scientific research and that method that scientists are taught from the very beginning. It's like you ask a question because you're curious about something, and then you have to come up with an idea, a hypothesis of what you think the answer might be. And from there, the snowball begins, where you're now doing research, you're observing, you're analyzing what you find, and then you come up with your own conclusion, and then you collaborate with others based on their own answers. And that is just, that's the beauty of scientific discourse. And living in this time, the year known as 2020, where everything is up in question and many people are just believing what's fed to them, now it's imperative that folks individually have this type of mindset, because that's the only way that we will come up with logical, sound, and informed decisions instead of just relying solely on emotions. Now, emotions definitely play a role in our decision making, and it should be a part of it, but it shouldn't be all of it. We need both sides. And so that's why I love the fact that I had the opportunity to receive that type of education, because it informs everything that I do.
So in talking about what's really foundational to you, right, marine biology, I also almost immediately think of your nonprofit, the Big Blue and You, which you co-founded with your mom in 2008. And it's an amazing organization focused on engaging youth in marine conservation through art and media. So with Big Blue and You, why is it so important to you in particular to connect with kids and teens, young people? Why is it so important to connect them with ocean conservation?
I've always believed in the power of the youth mind. So the way that young people think, speaking from my own experience, as a kid, I always had a vivid and wild imagination. And I loved, again, exploring my own curiosity. What did I love to do? I wanted to be outside all the time. I, had imaginary friends. I did the whole thing. And I've always appreciated that because it's untainted, and people who maintain that childlike curiosity, I think, tend to have more quality in their lives in general, just having a great life where every day is an adventure. And so I wanted to feed that curiosity. And so I thought at the time when I was 21 that my best route in investing in the future generation was to create a nonprofit. And so that's what we did. And my mom helped me. She is an amazing businesswoman. So she helped me to create that side of the business, because a nonprofit is a business at the end of the day. We may not be making profits, but it still should be structured like a normal business. And so we're 12 years in, and we started because we both had a passion for the environment and for animals, and also a passion for children and uplifting youth, especially youth that are disenfranchised, that come from, families that may be broken and they don't have the same kind of support system that some of us do. And so we wanted to find a way to combine those two things, and that's where Big Blue and You blossomed. And so our main focus was creating opportunities for kids in our community to come out to the ocean, connect with the ocean using art and science in tandem. So our event, Art by the Sea, which we held 7 years in a row in Miami, was a huge success because we were able to open that window and connect with local artists from our community, also with scientists who were doing and conducting research, whether it was about ocean acidification or coral bleaching. These were all topics that were conversed about at the event, but in a fun, engaging way. So imagine just a day celebrating the ocean, but learning at the same time. That's what we did. And many of the children that have attended our event don't know how to swim. They haven't been given the opportunity, whether it was because their parents didn't know how to swim or they lacked access to water itself in like a local pool where they could, find someone to teach them. And so we really believe that our Art by the Sea was that spark. It was planting a seed for them to want to continue to learn more. And, it comes with the territory of hosting events. It feels kind of like a one-off kind of thing, but it's really not, especially when you're dealing with youth, because you never know what that one experience, that one conversation could change the trajectory of their lives from that moment. So we just wanted to create the space for that to happen. And like I said, we've had tremendous success with it. I can't wait until we're able to do live events again. But for now, we're pivoting over to virtual content and virtual events. So, our team is making it happen. And I'm looking forward to seeing what we evolve into in 2021.
So your passion for engaging youth specifically, like we just spoke about in ocean conservation, it shines through in a lot of ways. We could talk for hours about it probably, but in addition to your nonprofit, the Big Blue and You, I do specifically want to point out your work in co-creating and running a program called Sea Youth Rise Up, with the C spelled SEA for listeners. And Sea Youth Rise Up was launched on World Oceans Day in 2016. I've admired this program for so many years, just like Big Blue and You. I'd love if you could share with listeners, what is Sea Youth Rise Up all about?
Sure. So Big Blue and You partnered with the Ocean Project as well as Youth Ocean Conservation Summit to create a program where we would invite 7 youth delegates to Washington, D.C. once a year during the week of World Oceans Day to go to Capitol Hill and speak to our legislators about ocean policy. And really, our main goal in this whole initiative was to create the space for young people to have these conversations with those who are making our laws in this nation, but also to look at the fact that they have the opportunity to do that at any time and to be involved in the decision making for their future. Really, it blew me away every single time. We did it for about 3 years in a row, and it was such a mind-opening experience because I would watch their transformation within literally a week because of the experiences that they shared throughout the week. And when we walked into Capitol Hill, and some of them, it was their first time ever even going to DC, so coming to our nation's capital, and that empowering feeling that just ran through their veins, having stepped into the hallways and walking into those offices and having the conversations with the folks in each, representative or senator's office. It was just like, it was beautiful. And this generation, I think, understands the power of their voice and showing up for the big decisions that need to be made that are going to impact all of us.
Want to be featured on the PADI Dive Stories podcast? Introducing the Dive Log, a new segment of the show that's all about you, our listeners. Go to padi.com/podcast to record and submit your most memorable dive story for a chance to be featured in an upcoming episode. We look forward to highlighting listener dive stories from around the world, so head to padi.com/podcast today. And now, back to this episode. So, Danny, like I mentioned in the intro, you are a seasoned TV personality. And in fact, you are the first woman of color to host an American science TV show, which is just absolutely incredible. The show is called Exploration Nature Knows Best, and it's a STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. It's a STEM educational TV show that airs nationwide on Fox, and it's available on Amazon Prime. And for those of you listening that haven't seen Exploration Nature Knows Best, I highly recommend checking it out. You'll get to see Danny's science communication skills really shine as she explores some really fun and clever nature-inspired technologies. But beyond that, though, Danny, I do want to highlight specifically your dedication to opening up more spaces for minorities to pursue a path centered around STEM. I know this is a big focus of yours. So from your perspective, why is it so vital that we promote diversity in science and conservation?
Well, the bottom line is if you can see it, you can be it. And as a young person, when I was growing up, I didn't have anyone to look to who looked like me, that was doing the work that I hoped and dreamed of doing. So that really was the core reason why I even pursued this career, to be a part of, a science television show, because the only person I had to look to at that time was like Bill Nye the Science Guy, who I would run home after school to watch his show because I loved his enthusiasm, his excitement, and his knowledge. The fact that he was, making kids feel like they could do anything and they could ask any question that they wanted and they can explore things. That inspired me from day one.
And have fun with science.
And have fun with science, because science is so fun. It's so fun. But yet we continue to get these messages that it's something else, and that's just not true. So I wanted to change the narrative, and I wanted to do it by acting on that. And so this has been over a decade of me pursuing this lane and this career. And I am proud to be the first African-American woman to host a science show here in the US. And that, to me, I don't take that lightly, because I know that there are lots of young women and men watching the show who, again, hopefully have that seed of inspiration planted within themselves so that they feel as though they can do it. And now more than ever, I think it's important for us to acknowledge the lack of diversity in fields like this, because why are we taking so long as human beings to include everyone in the conversation, especially in science? Because we should be reflecting what nature shows us. Nature shows us complete diversity. You don't get one perspective. Everyone plays a role in an ecosystem. Every single living being. It's all interconnected, and so are we. And the fact that those who maybe are the decision makers or those in power or whatever, whatever role you might play, every single person has an opportunity to include someone else that wouldn't traditionally be in that space. You get more perspectives, you get more unique experiences. And I think that you're stronger because of it.
Yeah, that was so beautifully said, the way your analogy with nature. And I think it's so spot on with any ecosystem in the natural world that we look at. Higher diversity always means a healthier, more robust ecosystem, right? So thank you so much for sharing your perspectives on that, about your experience, as well as, just the importance of representation and equality and diversity in all fields, and specifically in science and conservation. You being in the public eye and doing just all the amazing work that you do, it's definitely opening pathways for so many, and it's just contributing so positively to that conversation. So thank you so much.
Oh, I appreciate that, Allison. Thank you.
Now, in addition to hosting Exploration Nature Knows Best, you are also a TV correspondent on the CBS show Mission Unstoppable, which is, again, another educational series, specifically, I think, for teens, and it celebrates female innovators on the cutting edge of science. So as a marine biologist, obviously ocean-loving diver, like we've talked about, what are some of the coolest ways that you've gotten to highlight the underwater world specifically on this show, Mission Unstoppable?
Well, Mission Unstoppable has been really fun to film. We concluded production back in February. It was just perfect timing, pre-COVID, so we didn't have any missing segments. But it was really fun to work with this team because we were focused on uplifting women in STEM, So all different fields. And I had the opportunity to travel around the country. And my favorite trip, I think the segment most closely related to the ocean and marine science, was going to the University of Hawaii. And one of their research stations worked with a marine ecologist. And we went and did some surveying over the small patch reefs that were literally adjacent to the island. And we took these images of a specific part of the reef in order to measure different things and to capture the health of the reef. And so I really enjoyed that. The water was really cold because it was back in January. Now I'm a wimp with cold water. Remember, I'm from Florida, so I like warm water. But the Pacific is a different beast sometimes. But it was such a privilege to go to Hawaii and spend time there and again meet some brilliant scientists that were working in this space. In a nutshell, the experience of interviewing scientists, I just learned so much. It's the best school that I could ever attend.
And probably the most fun too.
It really is because it's hands-on learning. And I think most of us are those who need that tactile experience of seeing, breathing, like doing all of the things in the moment rather than just studying it in a textbook.
Yeah, and I think diving is just such an amazing exemplification of that, right? You're so in the moment. You're there seeing and breathing and doing. So with that, I'd love to ask you, with the name of this podcast being Dive Stories, what is one of your most memorable dive stories?
I have many, many stories. And the one that I reference as the most magical, the most memorable has to be when I dove with manta rays in Ecuador. And this was back in 2013. And I was with a couple actually, who were producing this series called Ocean Gems. And I think this is how we actually met Allison or connected at some point. But yeah, this segment, we were with a marine biologist by the name of Andrea Marshall, and we were helping her and filming her at the same time with her field research about giant mantas in the area. They had just discovered this amazing aggregation site that they didn't know existed. And we're talking about the big mantas, the largest species. And it was an amazing feeding ground. And so the diving was tough, murky water, cold, lots of current, but the mantas were insane. They were just gorgeous. And that was my first time ever diving with manta rays. And then the last day, after 7 days of diving on the water, and trying to capture just the right shot, we finally interacted with one manta that had a fishing line wrapped around its body that was cutting into its skin. And so Andrea helped cut the line off of that manta. And she's just such an amazing diver after hundreds of dives experience. And then the manta just turned around and came and swam with us for the remainder of our dive. And I remember hitting the thermocline in the water. We were probably about 65, almost 70 feet down. And the water went from that pea soup green, and underneath the thermocline, it was a cobalt blue. And of course, that water was absolutely freezing, but it was enchanting. And we were just gliding through the water with the manta, and it slowed down for us just so we could keep up. But I remember looking into the eye of that manta ray and thinking, wow, this animal sees me. It can see me and knows that I'm there and is acknowledging my presence. And we're able to share this moment.
Yeah. Wow. That is a seriously epic dive story. Thank you for sharing. And I feel like those are the kinds of experiences that we, us as divers, it just really makes our love for the ocean just like totally overflow,
It really does. I think back to that moment all the time because it's again a reminder of what I'm doing all this for. Yes, I love humanity. Yes, I want to, build a better world for future generations, but I also truly love the living beings that are underneath the ocean, and I want to protect them too.
So with that specifically, I know we've spoken about this in the past. It's really important to both of us that our daily actions align with our love for the ocean, right? So I'd love if you could share, what are some of the things that you do in your daily life or on a regular basis that enables a more sustainable lifestyle that does help those animals that live beneath the surface as well as just the planet as a whole?
Yeah, there's lots that we can do. I'm not claiming to be a perfectionist in sustainability. Like that's not realistic because we all have different lifestyles. We live in different locations and have access to different things. But within my own power, I definitely, stay away as much as possible from single-use plastics. I engage in using reusables, even though it's not always convenient. I also, I'm really focused on systematic change. So I really want to see and explore how we can restructure what we're already doing, whether it's looking at our waste system or our food system. These are all big things that are all contributing to climate change and then ultimately impacting the ocean. And so how can we change those things? And so those are big questions. They're a little bit ephemeral, but I think we're living through a time where we have the opportunity to make those decisions on a large scale because of our connectivity through the internet. And we can look at case studies and see communities that are doing it right and that have figured out solutions that can scale up. And so it's time for us to make those decisions. Other than that, it's really about awareness. And I truly believe in inspiring love for nature, love for the ocean, because there you will have that evolution of it'll move from love to understanding and then to the desire to protect. And so I want to take people on that journey. And that's why I participate in creating content about the ocean and about nature.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely great topics, great advice. And I just think it's so important that, we recognize that there's these topics, right? Like you mentioned, like waste system and food system. There's these topics that seem disconnected from the health of the environment or the health of the ocean on the surface, but obviously they're so highly connected. And so I think with those sorts of areas, we can look at our individual actions as well as our collective action and come together to really create change. So exactly what you said, we all have different variables, but we can all focus on things in our own ways and together. To wrap up, I want to ask you this. With all your experience as a public figure and working with youth, being a role model for so many, when it comes to a healthy and sustainable future for our blue planet, what gives you hope looking forward?
The biggest thing that gives me hope is, again, the next generation. They are the ones who will change, everything. And they're the most informed generation to date. And when we talk about hope, I know some people think that it's just too lofty to think like that. But I believe that we all need to have a small element of hope within ourselves. Otherwise, what's the point of living at this point? We have to have the opportunity to envision a better future for ourselves and for our communities and our families. And so I rely heavily on seeing the next generation of leaders rise up, like as we speak, and they're doing everything in their power to level up and to make sure that they hold adults who are making these decisions, holding them accountable is so important. They may not be fully experienced in life like many of us are who are older, but they have that openness, that curiosity, the genuine desire to live a better life. So I think we should really follow their lead.
Danni, on behalf of our global community of PADI divers and ocean lovers, thank you for being a passionate public figure in the world of ocean conservation, for promoting diversity in STEM, and thank you for joining us on Dive Stories. As always, it's been really great chatting with you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for including me, and it's my pleasure. Thank you, Allison.
Thanks for tuning in to Dive Stories. You've just heard Danni Washington, ocean science and conservation TV personality and co-founder of The Big Blue and You. To learn more about Danni and her work, you can visit her website, DanniWashington.com, and find her on social media at Danni Washington. Looking for ideas of how to turn your passion into purpose? PADI is on a mission to unite people from around the globe to take action for the ocean, above and below the surface. Like divers holding a torch, this growing community of PADI torchbearers lights the path towards a better balance between humanity and the ocean. You can sign up right now to join this global community at padi.com/conservation. Together, our collective light shines brighter. This has been Dive Stories, brought to you by PADI, Seek Adventure, Save the Ocean. If you love the ocean and enjoyed this podcast episode, please subscribe to Dive Stories in your podcast app and feel free to leave a review. Follow PADI on social media and head to padi.com to join our community of torchbearers working together to seek adventure and save the ocean. I'm your host, Ocean Allison. Happy diving!